Welcome back to another episode of Mindset Mastery with Mindset Mary. I'm Mindset Mary, and today's guest is a living testament to our ability to entirely transform our identity and reinvent ourselves. Anthony Hughes is a former US lawyer who, at the age of 33, sold off his successful law firm in California to embark on a path of personal reinvention and professional transformation. With substantial investments in pioneering biohacking experiments and a passion for high performance and cutting edge chemistry, Anthony has transformed his identity and is now known as Tony Hughes. He owns a supplement company and has redefined what is possible in terms of optimizing physical and mental performance. I'm excited to share with you his personal and entrepreneurial journey. Welcome to the show, Tony.
All right. Thank you, Mary. Great introduction.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show today. So, Tony, your journey from being a lawyer to becoming Tony Hughes, the biohacking researcher and bodybuilding expert, is really intriguing. Can you elaborate on the catalyst that promoted you to transition from the legal world to the biohacking world and performance enhancements, as well as just like the complete move from North America to Asia?
There were so many different factors, so I couldn't choose a single catalyst, but some of the stuff that comes to mind was when I was 30 years old, I traveled through Asia, and it broadened my I'll put it this way. I was a big fish in a small pond in California, and then I came to Asia and I realized the world's much bigger place, and there was a lot more adventures to be had, and I lost my ego basically.
Okay.
And and all like the culture shock. I had been to Mexico a lot, but I'd never been. Asia was just a complete culture shock, totally different. Mexico was still like a different flavor of the US, I guess.
Okay.
And then I was overwhelmed because it was just so much work with the law office, and then taxes. You get to the higher tax brackets and taxes become pretty significant. So I was like, well, why am I working so hard to pay half the money in taxes? I was like, should I just kick back and not work hard? Like, I'm so demotivated to work hard in America because the work harder I work, it's just going to cost more.
Mhm.
So, and I already had the money to do everything I wanted, the house, the cars, the toys. So it's like, what else can I accomplish in America? I guess I felt like I beat that game, and it
Yeah.
was time to like try playing a different game.
Mhm.
So then Asia was like a challenge. Like every little thing was a challenge and a puzzle. And small puzzles were more exciting to beat than even the big puzzles in America. Because like working up the scale in America, like the next big leap for me up in America would be an incredible amount of work. And versus in Asia, I could come and I could have these small adventures, like learning and solving puzzles. Yeah. So and then baby mama number one got pregnant, and I was like, wow, I had so much experience in law. I knew that if I continued working as a lawyer, I would get stuck not being able to retire for 18 years. So I said, I would rather retire now at age 33 and yeah, start a
Yeah.
new life in Asia.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome because so many people would be fearful of completely uprooting their lives and their profession and going into something completely different and going
Mm-hmm.
really into the unknown. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious, what type of mindset shifts did you have to make to be able to say, "Hey, I'm leaving this behind and I'm starting something completely new," without knowing whether it's going to work or not?
Yeah, it's weird because when I was younger, I was groomed to be in real estate by my father's side of my family. That was just it. I'm supposed to be in real estate. And I went to law school only so that I could be the family lawyer, not so I could actually practice law. But
Mhm.
then I had the law degree and I passed the bar, and I'm like, let's try this. So that was like my first change. Was like I already planned on being in real estate my whole life, and then it was like, let's give this a try. And I put an ad up on Craigslist, and I started taking clients for really, really cheap. And I told everybody, hey, this is like my first cases, so I'm going to charge you very little money. And I worked so hard. made maybe only $10 an hour for the first 3 months as a lawyer, because I wanted to do so much work for free to gain the experience.
Yes.
So my passion, though, was always biohacking ever since age 12. That's when I first got obsessed with biohacking. And my family was grooming me to be in real estate, but then I went into law. So after I accomplished everything that I could accomplish in law with, like I said, it's like this law of diminishing returns. It would take me another decade of work to jump up this much further. I already had the big law firm and the fame and the money and everything. So then I was like, okay, let's go back to the biohacking,
Mhm.
my initial passion. And as most lawyers, they get involved in politics. I was also groomed to be in politics potentially. So politics and real estate. So I wanted to have a political influence. And I saw, because I had such a deep knowledge of biohacking, because I started studying it at age 12. When you start studying things in depth that young, it becomes like built into your psychology. So I have like this deep understanding of biohacking that someone couldn't have unless they started learning at an extremely young age. So it's like the way my brain thinks. And so I thought, since I've mastered biohacking, I could use that mastery, because any skill that you master, if you get to a high enough level, it becomes like a political, philosophical type thing. So I'm like, I can use my talent for biohacking to influence people politically and philosophically, and change the way they think about their existence and their relationship with the reality around them and their government, and why they think the things they think. And so I started. So the first thing I did with YouTube and becoming an influencer, it was actually motivated by wanting to change people's mind about politics and philosophy. And it was called the DNP Diaries, where I took a deadly fat loss drug, which is actually can be used very, very healthfully, but it was the perfect example to shock people and completely change the way they think about biohacking, because it just totally challenges everything the mainstream says about biohacking. So I used that as a tool, and I got addicted to, I would get so much hate from people, but back then I didn't have a big fan base. So I get hate from someone, and then I would take the time to train, to teach them, and they would do a complete 180. Their entire belief system about biohacking, the government, everything would just 180. I was like, wow, this is super profound. I have a talent for this. I can use biohacking to create a political movement. So there's
Mhm.
always this undertone of a political movement in everything that I do, and which is what eventually got me in trouble.
Yes, absolutely. And in terms of that political movement, like, are are you in a position where you want to change people's minds, change people's lives? What is it that you want? What is it that people are not having an awareness of right now that you want them to be more open to?
Most people trust their government and the media to some extent, which
Mhm.
are the two entities that you should have the least trust for. So step number one is, I want people to trust what they see and hear in their own senses and what's in front of them,
Mhm.
and question what the government or anybody who's in authority trying to tell them how they should think or what they should do. I want them to question it and not assume that 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 entity has their best interest at heart. So I want everybody to become responsible for their own decisions and the way they think about everything. But in modern culture, there's just a massive amount of responsibility lacking. And actually, as a lawyer, one of the things that was the hardest for me was when clients could not take responsibility for anything for themselves, and everything was like, oh, we have to sue this person. Oh, we have to sue. Oh, I bid on a candy and it broke my tooth. The candy was too hard. I want to sue the candy manufacturer. Oh, I got in an whatever accidents, everybody's suing everybody in America for things that they contributed to, that if they were better educated, made better decisions, then the mistakes wouldn't have been made. And one of the things that was so attractive to me when I left America, or when I started traveling, I was like, wow, in these other countries, people take much more responsibility. Like if you slip and fall, it's like you slipped and fall because there was a sign there that said wet floor and you didn't look at it and you slipped and fall, or you didn't watch where you're walking. But in America, anything that goes wrong, it's a lawsuit. It's not my responsibility. It's someone else's responsibility. And all of this comes down to these tools that are being used by these super powerful people in order to maintain a system of control over everybody, which is fine. That's humanity. That's how it works. And when technology advances to the stage that it's at, of course, the powerful people are going to use those advancements in technology to further their power and control over people. And I just want people to be aware of it so that they're consciously making the decision. And what offends me the most is when people are fighting against their own self-interest, their own family's interest, the future of their freedom. Like they're actually fighting against themselves because the media and the machine is so good at convincing people to fight against their own interests. They have it so easy. They don't even have to worry about being attacked themselves because they're so good at convincing people to fight against themselves. Yeah. So I just want people to be aware of it and say, if they want to go down that path and they want to surrender control and they want to live like North Korea, then say that and do that. Okay, everybody has a preference how they want to live, but don't tell me that you want freedom and you want this type of life and that, and then like do everything the opposite of what your goals are. I just want people to like set a goal with intention and then have the knowledge and access to knowledge and to be able to reach it and be mindful about it. So it's all of this mindfulness stuff is what it kind of all comes down to. And I just use biohacking as a tool. And back to the lawyer thing, like one of the things that was easy for me to transition out of law was I was so frustrated with how the American legal system works and the brainwashing and the corruption. And I'm like, okay, I'm good at law. Okay. The problem was with law, I couldn't start a YouTube channel and tell people the truth about how the law works and what's really happening, because I would lose my license. The same way a doctor can't go out and teach people like really effective medicine and biohacking because they'll lose their license because it contradicts mainstream medicine. So I couldn't use the lawyer to accomplish my higher purpose. I couldn't use my law career to do that without losing my license, which I didn't want to do. I still have my law license. Like I don't want to lose my law license. But I could do it through biohacking, as I don't have a biohacking license they can take away from me. And that's another part of how the matrix system, I know it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but another part of the system, how it's built, is they give the professionals the power and then through licensing, they control what all of the professionals do. So accountants and lawyers and doctors are all actually controlled by these boards. And you're like, as a lawyer, I'm supposed to have my client's best interest, but I got in trouble all the time by the judges for advocating too hard for my clients. I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm supposed to be part of the system. I'm supposed to walk my clients down to the guillotine and pretend like I'm advocating in their best interest, but really I'm just walking them through the matrix to their execution. Yeah. And I wanted to help people. I didn't want to like make their lives worse, you know?
Oh, 100%. And I completely agree. Like, if you want to change your life, if you want to get out of that matrix, you do have to take radical responsibility for your decisions, for your emotions, for your actions, for what you did and what you didn't do. Taking radical responsibility is like the ticket. It's the ticket out. What do you think prevents people from exiting the matrix? Is it fear? Is it that they need to feel like they are conforming with others? Like, what is it that keeps people stuck?
When I first started getting people out of the matrix, I thought everybody should get out of the matrix. Now, after having a lot more experience, most people belong in the matrix. Most people cannot take responsibility. Most people just need to be like sheeps or slaves or whatever. They're just part of the machine, and they should stay that way because they cannot survive if they have to take full responsibility for their lives. They just can't handle it. So Yeah, step number one is someone needs to really, I want everybody to be aware of whether they're like in the matrix or not in the matrix, but then again, being mindful and make the decision like, okay, I belong in the matrix. And that's totally fine. That's great. I would blatantly tell a lot of people that I've known, you belong in the matrix. You would function very well. You'll have a good life.
Mhm.
Outside the matrix, you'll probably die. Because it's a lot of responsibility, a lot of decision. Outside the matrix, there's a lot more freedom,
Yeah,
which means the more freedom, the more risk, the more mistakes you can make, and you have to take responsibility. You can't, when you're outside the matrix, you can't blame anybody for anything. It's a hunt, like you said, it's radical responsibility. So I don't think everybody should get out of the matrix. But I wish that more people would be educated at a younger age, and like giving people the information of the option to get out of the matrix
mm,
at a younger age, and then they can make that decision for themselves. And the later in life it is, maybe the harder it is, unless you have enough financial resources to be able to make a lot of mistakes
right.
outside the matrix.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes I go around your question a little bit because like I think I understand the deeper meaning of what you're saying too, but definitely pull me back if I go on a
No, no.
tangent.
No, no, absolutely not. No, that's great. And I think that like also at a young age, we're not really taught a whole lot about money and how does money work, finances, entrepreneurship, how do you go in for business for yourself? How do you build something? How do you create things? It's all about, go to school, go to university, get a good job, have a family, retire. And it's like going through, the motions of life and having everybody go through that same door to go through that same path. And then the people who are like, okay, that's not for me. I don't want to work for someone, or maybe I don't want to have a family, or I want to build something. I'm a visionary. I have different aspirations. I find that, going through the institutional systems that we're put in as young children and then young adults, it doesn't really lend itself to being a free thinker, to making decisions for yourself and not always going with the pack or the herd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the education system is, different from country to country. But a good example of like what education is missing is I went to Mexico my senior year of high school, and the curriculum was totally different, and that just blew my mind. Like, in high school and middle school, you're taking like algebra 1, algebra 2, and you take this path, and English, you take this path, and then all to go on this path, and then just to have completely different classes that have a completely different teaching style. Like, I think the one of the most important classes that I had was physics. And it's not that it's hard. I mean, physics sounds hard, but it just teaches you like the laws of our I guess just a universe, but I don't know if that applies to the whole rest of the universe. It applies to life on planet Earth for sure. So that was a class that I can't believe that we didn't have physics in. Maybe you had, I don't know, maybe some people have physics. I just blew my mind. I can't believe that I was going to graduate high school in the US and not have had a physics class, which was one of the most important classes that I've ever had.
Wow. Yeah, I've never had it. I've never taken physics either, and
Wow. Yeah.
and it really depends on your trajectory. Like they're, in grade 10, they tell you, okay, if you take these courses, here's the doors that open for you. If you don't take these courses, here's the doors that are going to close for you. And you have to make a decision at a very young age on the courses that you are and aren't going to take, right?
Mm.
And then I find that that's a little bit unfair in the sense that at that young age, you maybe don't know. You don't know what it is that you want. And I find a lot of people struggling, like now going into university. I have a niece, and it's like, it's a lot of expectation on her at the age of 18 for her to know what she wants to do with the rest of her life, right? And
Mm.
I think
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, they're more open and curious and comfortable in the unknown, and allowing their decisions to take them places, and being okay with not knowing, taking those risks, sometimes calculated, sometimes not calculated, but sometimes we really have to operate in a gray area to really know what it is that we're being drawn towards. And I think maybe the matrix doesn't lend itself to that very much, where it's like you got to really have a
Yeah.
clear path at a young age into where you're going. And then you go there, you get there, you don't enjoy it, but you feel stuck because you've taken all this education and you've invested all this money into having this career, say lawyer, right? That's a prime example, or doctor, all to get there and realize like, I don't really like this. This is not, doesn't, I can't feel my heart pulling towards this profession. And then you're just doing it for the sake of, earning a living, having a nice life, comfortable things. But then deep down, you just know that you're definitely meant for more. And it's not for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's basic fundamentals education that we should all get, like about money, for example. Like you said, they don't teach about money. And then there's like the optional stuff on top, which would be like working towards your passion. But the fundamental of teaching people about money, I grew up in a family on both sides of my family that really understood money. So to me, I understood, but I've been shocked as a lawyer having thousands of clients go through the bankruptcy process and talking to clients about money, and their knowledge of money was about what my knowledge was in maybe third grade. So,
Mm.
and I'm just thinking, how do these people function? How
Mm.
they drive a car, they rent or own a house, but they just don't get money, because by the time they do learn it at some older age, again, like we talk about, like when I was 12, I started learning biohacking. So it became built into my thinking. When people start learning about money when they're 30 years old, it's very difficult for them to understand money. Like these are the type of things that have to be taught at a younger age. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, 100% agree. So then tell me about biohacking. What interested you at such a young age into the world of biohacking?
When I was 12 years old, I had my first kiss with a hottie alert. And
Okay.
I said, wow, I want more of those type of kisses. But this girl said she wanted to have a boyfriend with abs. And I didn't have enough abs for her, apparently.
Okay.
So I didn't even know what abs were. I asked what abs are. Okay, they're a muscle. Okay, I go to the magazine store and I buy all of the bodybuilding magazines about building muscle. And I did, starting at age 12 all the way till somewhere in high school. I read every bodybuilding magazine on the shelf every month.
Yeah.
So I read a lot. And now that's just one facet of biohacking. But what happened was I became really good at bodybuilding and physical performance.
Mhm.
And then I thought, okay, well, now there's these, like, I thought of the human body and mind and spirit like a video game. And I thought, okay, if my avatar isn't focusing all of its time on building big muscles, then okay, it's a big muscle avatar with a big sword. But there's also, like, like you play a video game, a wizard, there's like magic, and
Mhm.
there's like some kind of level of intelligence or something. So I was like, okay, I want to improve all of these and build the most awesome avatar, and
Okay.
then for sure she'll want to kiss me. But the truth is, I knew at the time that that was kind of a ridiculous way to think, but I found that it drove me. Like,
Okay.
every time I thought, if I perform well, this girl's gonna kiss me, and that would motivate me. I could use that for anything. I'd be like, okay, I could do 10. I say, like, oh, I hit failure on sit-ups. Oh, I could do 10 more sit-ups. If that was the difference between this girl kissing me again or not, then I'll do 10 more sit-ups. And then I started at age 13, I started meditating at a pretty high level.
Oh,
And I thought, okay, if I develop my spirituality, this may give me some powers or some advantages. And I just thought, like, that was the weakest point. So at 13, I went on this spiritual thing, and then improving my brain, and then experimenting with all the supplements. And I thought, okay, what are all the different tools that I have at my disposal to improve myself? And so I had supplements, and I had all the lifestyle biohacking stuff. And so I found supplements to be a really large toolbox that I could never stop learning about. So I got obsessed with supplements. So I would go to GNC and I would buy all of the supplements and experiment with all of them. And I became an expert on supplements at age by the time I was age 14, I knew more than any salesperson in any supplement store anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
I just, and then, yeah. And then I just trying to figure out how to optimize the human body. I started reading like anatomy books and yeah, it was an obsession. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they often say that our obsessions become our possessions.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's so strange, right? Like I didn't go into that career initially, but then at age 33, I came back to my obsession. Well, when I was in the courtroom, I'm really good at multitasking. So I could be like reading my client's file, and then I could go over and I would be reading medical studies for
Mm.
biohacking stuff, like in the courtroom, going back and forth.
Oh,
But because I was good enough as a lawyer to be able to multitask, but my passion was biohacking always. So like it would excite me. It would give me energy to come over to the biohacking and then go back to my client stuff. So I never gave up the biohacking. I kept learning. And yeah, still do. 41 years old now, still doing it. So that's a lot of years.
that's amazing. It's like, yeah, like, you know, when we're pursuing our passions, it actually fuels us. And people think, you know, why do you work so hard? And you don't really see it as work because you actually love it. You're immersed in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, time flies. You feel you're in that state of flow because you're doing exactly what you want to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I guess, so when you went off to Asia, is that when you built your supplement company?
I started before I left to Asia. I mean, I had the vacation trips through Asia, and then I went back and I said, okay, it's time to transition the law office to prepare it to be sold. And as I was transitioning, then I was starting getting in the supplement industry. Yeah.
And in being in the supplement industry, I guess I'm curious, did you ever have any moments of like an identity crisis or just like, okay, I'm a lawyer, but now I'm a researcher. Now I do supplements and biohacking. Like, I'm just curious as to like, was that an easy transition for you because you've been so immersed in it at such a young age, or were you faced with people who have been in the industry for a long time, very successful, and you're feeling like you're the small fish now in the big pond?
The biggest feeling I have about it, I think, is that as a lawyer, we're all about being intellectual. And then I switched to biohacking, but mostly on like the bodybuilding side and fitness side, and that is not an intellectual genre. So it was pretty weird to go, like, in some ways it felt like a big step backwards intellectually, and it was harder to find the intellectual stimulation. Like as a lawyer, I'm forced to be intellectually stimulated, but in the bodybuilding thing, like, because there's a lot of bodybuilding fitness guys out there who are like science nerds that don't have good physiques and they don't understand the practicality of it all. They just study the books about it. So I never wanted to be that, because I could recognize the deficiencies of that, like how ridiculous that looks that someone's obsessed with bodybuilding but doesn't have a physique, like, but pretends like they know it all. And this is very common in the fitness world. It's like, wow, I definitely don't want to become that. But I need to find the intellectual stimulation. So what I did was I was trying to look for the smartest people in that genre. And I found one. I found the smartest person I've ever met when it came to bodybuilding. And I ended up like kidnapping him and keeping him with me full time and absorbing his knowledge for years,
Right.
and him living with me. And so that I found stimulating. But then when I, he's like very unreliable, though. He's a genius when it comes to biohacking and bodybuilding, but like the rest of his life is a disaster. So like trying to manage that was totally exhausting. And yeah, I mean, I'm reminiscing so much about, like, I had so much mental stimulation, but then the big problem is when the mental stimulation drops off, and
Mhm.
then I feel like I'm taking a huge step backwards mentally. And even like in this country, I'm in Thailand, and even here when I'm talking to people that don't speak English that well, or they're very simple-minded, I'm like, wow, I'm really missing this intellectual stimulation. Am I going to get dumber every day? And but thank goodness for people like AJ. AJ moved here, you know. It's very significant when you have very intelligent, you know, driven friends around. It makes a big difference, and I need more of that, basically.
It sounds to me like you really thrive on challenge and like building, or figuring out pieces of the puzzle. Um,
Yeah.
Even from like being a lawyer and then trying to experiment with supplements, it's like you're trying to figure something out, finding a solution.
Yeah, so I don't feel like I abandoned a law career that I didn't get anything for besides selling it and making money. But it's like switching careers. What I got from that career was my brain and the way it thinks. And being a lawyer made me an amazing biohacker because before before law school and being a lawyer, I could read medical studies and I could read things that people would publish about biohacking, and I could get tricked. But
Mm,
after being a lawyer, I can like, it's almost like I can see through the words to the person who's writing it and understand why they're writing it, why they're choosing those words. And I don't even know how it works. Artificial intelligence probably could dissect all of this. I don't know how it works, but it built up like an intuition to read behind what I'm actually reading. And that gave me a superhuman ability when it came to biohacking. So long as I'm like actually reading the biohacking and I'm actually challenging myself. But then the other tough part is like there's a law of diminishing returns with everything. So even with biohacking, there's but the law of diminishing returns, it's a lot less diminishing than in law. In law, things don't change as fast. You know, it's not evolving as fast as science and our knowledge of biology and chemistry and the access to drugs. But with biohacking, things are constantly changing. So yeah, there's a law of diminishing return in so much as I've already mastered most of the protocols for my body and clients that I help. So it's like now I'm kind of getting into stuff that's so complicated with biohacking that it's just it's more a lot more than I need to know.
mhm.
On the other hand, there's no limit to what I could learn because the science is evolving. So actually, if you want to stay on the real cutting edge, then you'll never really plateau.
Right.
It's a puzzle, constantly a puzzle, yeah, to
Absolutely.
solve.
And if you're looking for that mental stimulation and that challenge, you will find it in the biohacking world because it's true. Things are changing day by day. Always new things are coming out and we're learning about different things. And it's a kind of nice to work in a space where there's no ceiling, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So then
yeah.
tell me about your protocol. I know you work with clients, helping them with their physique. How does your protocol help people achieve their performance and fitness goals?
The main difference with what I do is I help people feel more comfortable about using chemistry and teaching them that there is a safe, healthy way to use chemistry to biohack the body. Because in the era that we're in right now, I believe that chemistry is our best tool to have a better quality of life in every possible way, live as long as possible, whatever. Now, before all the chemistry was available, it would have been all just the lifestyle stuff. Like obviously get sunlight, your circadian rhythm, drink water, exercise. Okay, but all the basics that a lot of the mainstream stuff repeat, that never changes. That's always the same. But what does change is our access to drugs, medication, chemistry, and supplements that's evolving very quickly. And now we've got this window of time where we can do a lot with supplements and drugs. And then after this era, we're going to be entering some different eras of like genetic manipulation, in which case supplements won't matter at all anymore because you would just change your genes to do everything. And then after that, or similar timing to that, is going to be transitioning into how to transhumanism, I guess. We're using technology and like you'd have your eyes replaced with synthetic eyes that can do more than our biological eyes, things like that. So that's probably 100 years. Probably everybody will have their eyeballs replaced with high tech eyes. So like at that point, nobody's going to use supplements anymore. So you've got this window of time in humanity before basically it's the end of humanity, where we have these supplements that are very, very powerful, more powerful than most people realize. And I want people to, while they're here and while we're in this era of human evolution, like I want people to be able to have access to this knowledge. And so, yeah, my clients, I teach them, like I get them on protocols that give them amazing results. But through the process, my goal is to teach them how to think about it so that in the future they can make their own protocols and they aren't going to get tricked by companies that are selling scam things, or they're not going to get tricked by the mainstream medical community, or when the flu virus over those last few years was happening, I was giving people protocols to fix it. And then I was most of all trying to use that as an example to teach them on how they could deal with this type of situation in the future. And it probably saved a lot of people's lives, so that it becomes super relevant. And it's not just bodybuilding, biohacking. You could learn anything. You could learn about how to manipulate your brain with chemistry and those same physics. You could call it Dr. Tony Huge's laws of biochemistry physics. You could apply those same physics to building muscle, burning fat, increasing any type of performance. So I want to teach people the physics of how biochemistry works, but people, it's just too abstract unless they experience it themselves. So as an example, one tool that I used to show people what the human body in combination with the right chemistry is capable of, I call it the mass blast, where we documented the building of more muscle, permanent muscle, not just like temporary blow up and shrink down, but permanent muscle on people in a very short period of time than ever has been done before. So, and I took experienced bodybuilders, and I also took people who'd never taken a supplement and barely ever worked out before, and mass blasted them and put on 25 pounds of muscle and just completely changed their physique in less than a month.
Wow, that's amazing. And when people's physiques change, right, like they're seeing physical results of how they're evolving, how their body is evolving, do you think that plays a factor in how their mental fitness and emotional fitness is changing as well? I'm always curious because
Wow.
I've met with a lot of people and coached people in the fitness space, and they'll undercompensate in their like mental and emotional fitness, but overcompensate in their physical fitness. And when you get talking to them, there are things that they're perhaps not paying as much attention to. But then when you ask them questions, you realize like they're needing to shift their focus more to their emotional fitness, because there are things that they're thinking about, like as a mindset coach, you'll start to hear things about, having self-doubt, lack of confidence. But when you look at them, you think that they're the most confident person in the room. When you talk to them, you realize that, there are areas in their emotional fitness that perhaps they'd like to give more attention to. What has your experience been?
Okay, so 3 thoughts about this then. One is, remember, my motivation to get into bodybuilding, biohacking was because I wanted this girl to kiss me, right? So you could analyze all the psychological reasons. Like you could coach me back then and be like, you don't need to build a body, you need to build a lot of other things that are going to be more effective, because I never got another kiss from that girl after all that. So case in point.
Oh.
And then on the other extreme, okay, so then there's 2 extremes. You have people who put too much emphasis on their body, and it's taking time away from other things they could be developing, other skills. So I like to teach those people that they could actually build a body much, much faster. So instead of going to the gym for 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then worrying about your diet for 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, and like sacrificing your life to have a better physique, we can add a little bit of chemistry in there to make it so much more efficient. And you can have the same physique in a third the amount of time and energy. And the supplements aren't going to be unhealthy. So there's no reason not to take them. Actually, I brought Connor Murphy, came to Thailand, another friend of AJ also. And he was like all natural and wouldn't take many supplements. He took a couple things here and there, but I showed him, and he researched for himself. I said, look, if you take these supplements, you will be healthier than natural, and you will have the best physique of your life. And we can prove it all with blood work, because I've done this so many times before with so many clients. So he put on 20 pounds of muscle. He's got the best physique of his entire life. He's significantly healthier. We've done the blood work 6 times to prove it all along the course of this transformation. And so, like, what's the drawback? Why not use the supplements? Why not take the shortcuts? Yeah. And so now he's such a firm believer in this movement. We call it Natty Plus, natural plus, that he's advocating for it full time. Like, that's what he's doing full time now, to try to show people stop following this dichotomy of natural or full-blown steroids. Like, there's a middle ground where you can have the best of both. And why is everybody choosing these extreme sides? And being so polarized? Okay, then so on the one extreme, you have people spending too much time obsessing over fitness where they could have taken some shortcuts. And then on the other side, though, if you start researching like upgrading your brain performance or your longevity or pretty much anything in your life, exercise is the most powerful supplement or lifestyle hack that you could do. So every human needs to be exercising no matter what, whether it's to build their physique or not. Because I mean, it's just like, okay, heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, all of these diseases are like the main contributing factor is lack of exercise and bad diet. But I mean, that solves most people's problems in their lives. It's just exercise more. I mean, even like their mindset and stuff, right? If they exercise, they're going to feel better about themselves. Their brain chemistry works better. So then if we all agree that everybody should exercise and that would fix a lot of their problems, then if you're going to exercise, then why not take some of the supplements and have an amazing physique anyways? So I think everybody should have an amazing physique and exercise, and also not have to obsess over it, and have plenty of time to develop all the other skills in their life.
I love that. I love that. And it's also, and I like the dichotomy of like, it has to be either natural or steroids. It's like, life is really about living in the gray, right? It's not always one or the other. It's not always A or B. Sometimes it's something you need to create for yourself. And in terms of your protocol, is it tailored to that person's specific fitness goals, or is it a protocol it is? Okay.
I mean, there's some basics that are similar to a lot of them. For example, one thing that's very similar is that most of my clients are on as far as bodybuilding standards, a very low dosage of testosterone. Okay. And instead we use other things on top of it. Whereas most fitness coaches would keep going up and up in the dosage of testosterone. I keep the testosterone dosage pretty low because there are healthier, better things than adding more testosterone. But other than that, every protocol is pretty different. Like when I'm talking to a client, everybody's priorities are really different, actually. Everybody says like, I want to build more muscle and lose fat. But then when you really get to know like what they're trying to do and what their lifestyle is, and because I try to fit it to their lifestyle, they'll say, tell me what diet to eat. And I'll say, no. You tell me what you're eating, like what you're already doing. And let me fine tune every part of that, because I know you can already do that. And then the small changes. If I just throw out like a strict diet and training, how long are you going to do that for? 1 month? No, I want to pick a path that I know you can continue for the next 20 years and adapt it to that. So that's the big difference. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think, the best coaches will meet their clients exactly where they're at, because we know how hard it is to change habits and rituals, right? Like you can't jolt the system. It'll work. I mean, a month, that's very generous. Most people won't even be able to live up to that month, right? Before we kind of go back to our original ways of how we live our life. Because we always want to gravitate back to what's most comfortable. Right. So, and that's what's the most difficult thing about making changes to better our lives, to better our physiques. So in your protocol, is there anything in there that is actually enhancing like the brain? Like, are there brain enhancement supplements that are part of that protocol where people are able to, release some of that brain fog, think more clearly, better focus?
Mhm. Yeah. And the brain stuff gets more complicated. Like
Yeah.
building muscle and burning fat is much easier than biohacking someone's brain. And because the brain is complicated and there's a lot of like domino effects, and you do one thing and then it makes all these other changes. So, um, on the one hand, I could tell everybody to take a couple supplements, like fish oil and ginkgo biloba or something. Like I could say some basic things that work for everybody to work a little bit. Um, and so you can't go wrong with these things. But if you're really trying to really push your brain to its limits, then it has to be very custom tailored. Because I mean, just one example is some people, you've got these neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin and adrenaline and GABA and the glutamate receptor. And so everybody's got different amounts of these neurotransmitters. Everybody got different sensitivity to each one of these transmitters. Some people, it's just a matter of preference. Like some people like to feel more energized, and other people that makes them feel anxious, so they want to feel less energized. Or if they have a job that requires them to like sit in a chair and be focused, that's a completely different brain neurochemistry profile than someone who's got to be, really active.
Mm.
So it's very challenging and it takes experimentation. But the good thing is with the brain chemistry, there's a lot of things that work very quickly, instantly. So I can trial and error, and I can see how clients react to certain things very quickly. But then there's also long-term stuff like, our brain cells are constantly dying, and we're constantly having, brain damage over our life, and there's a lot of that can be reversed. So some of it's like a real long-term play that you can't really feel right now, but it'll make a big difference later. Like when I had the flu, I suffered a lot of brain damage. I had inflammation. My body was I'm lucky to be alive.
Oh, wow.
And the brain fog hit first or early on. So even though I had every possible supplement to treat it, um, I have a very active immune system, and I get inflamed very easy because when I was younger, I had a mold under my father's house, and I was severely allergic to it, where I could barely breathe many days. So it did something to my immune system. It damaged my lungs. And so then when I got the flu that attacks the lungs and that inflammation, my lungs are already compromised from childhood. And I'm already have an overactive immune system from the mold from before. I have allergies, that I get allergies very easy and all that. So I got brain fog, and I couldn't figure out how even to treat myself until finally I realized, oh, I should take this and this, and boom, and I took it and it was gone. It was that easy. If I just, my brain was working earlier to do that. So yeah, so like the brain is something that there's a short term and a long term, an acute and, long term. And my brain was definitely damaged through that, but I've been rebuilding it, and that's the long term. And then also I'm experimenting on myself constantly. Every day is a different nootropics protocol that day. And if I'm talking with a client one day and they have a specific problem, then I'll be mindful of that as I'm doing my protocol, so I can try to put myself in their shoes. um Actually, that's usually how I treat it. I think of like, okay, if I'm in my client's shoes and I want to feel this, and I have this, and this is my lifestyle, and this is my environment, it's like I close my eyes and I see it in as my reality, and then I just use my problem solving to figure out what they need to do or change or
Yeah.
add or subtract. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Also, I found DNA testing. Have you done any DNA testing?
Yeah.
Um, okay, yeah. So that I think that also kind of solves a piece of the puzzle. Like when you were talking about dopamine and, rewards, A DNA test can easily tell you, are you reward seeking? If you were to get a hit of
Mm.
dopamine, do you clear it quickly and need to go find the next thing, right? Like serial entrepreneurs tend to, clear dopamine quickly and then look for the next challenge to get that next hit. And then other people will get that dopamine hit and it clears very slowly. So they don't need to quickly go into the next thing. And I think like our DNA gene expression tells us a lot about who we are as people and how we think and what motivates us. And I found
Yeah.
that to be a great piece of the puzzle that in my own puzzle of like really understanding myself and what motivates me, why I do the things that I do. I found that to be very, very helpful in addition to biohacking. So
Yeah.
then, oh
Yeah,
yeah, go.
actually, there's genetic testing and there's epigenetic testing, and I don't know how real this is. I have another influencer that I work with who swears by it, and I've got my test kit should arrive any day, and then do my epigenetics testing, and then see how accurate that is. But yes, the genetic testing is amazing. I don't review people's genetics other than a few genetics. Some of my clients come to me and they already know everything about their genetics.
Okay.
And then that's why they want me to help them biohack according to their genetics. Yes, I can do that. But I don't review like all these different line items of someone's genetics, but I do troubleshoot,
Mhm.
which would be more like what is their genetics plus their epigenetics. I do troubleshoot. So like you said, whether someone has these fast dopamine hits and fast clearances, or whether they're able to sustain it, like this is something that I would troubleshoot
Yeah.
and recommend to them certain nootropics versus others, whether they need more dopamine or they need more extended dopamine, or we even need to like keep it down so they don't like peak and crash. Yeah, exactly what I do. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, Tony, this has been such an amazing, amazing interview. I'm curious, like if someone was trying to get out of that matrix, what advice do you have for people who are like really seeking to redefine themselves and achieve greatness in different facets of their life? What advice do you have? Because you've really seemed to do a really great job at reinventing yourself and your identity and going into just a completely different line of work. And you've done it so successfully. So how could others learn from your journey?
I think the traveling was the most important factor. Okay. So I grew up in divorced parents, and I had my father's side and my mother's side, which are completely different styles of being brought up.
Yeah.
So that is sort of like a traveling thing, because I experienced at a young age two completely different cultures. And so then as a result, I become more of an individual. I become less of a subject of my environment,
Yeah.
being reactionary. And I'm like, wow, I can choose. I can either choose, like in this situation, my dad's side of the family would tell me to do this or do that. My mom's side of the family would tell me to do this or that. And I can actually choose between the two. Now I become a mindful human being, instead of being a non-player character, just being reactionary based on what I've been programmed. So then I spent a lot of time in Mexico, which is a different culture, but more similar to the US than Asia. And like, okay, now I understand this culture. So now I have like three totally different ways to look at things and choose from. And then I start traveling more and seeing all these different cultures. And the most important thing that comes from that is not to have this association that, like most people will just see something and just subconsciously associate it with something else, and they're not mindfully like intercepting that signal so that they can really analyze it for what it is and make a decision. They're just being reactionary. So the most important thing you can do to get out of the matrix is become extremely mindful and, like you said, radically responsible. And lots of different ways to do that, but travel is like the easiest one, because you, like, especially if you go, but I mean, a lot of people will travel with their significant other and stay in a tourist bubble, and they won't get any of that experience.
Yeah.
So one is don't travel to tourist bubbles, and then two is, um I mean, it's hard if you're like married or something, but if you're single and you can actually date and have a deep relationship with someone from another culture, so that you can really see the world through their eyes and realize how different we kind of think and assume other people are thinking the same thing we're thinking because we're humans. But man, some people are thinking something completely different.
Mhm.
And once you realize how many different perspectives there are to have about something, and you can start choosing between those perspectives, then you can, instead of traveling, you can stay in one place and you can look at one thing and see it from so many different perspectives that you can just do this traveling trick in your own head. Psychedelics. Psychedelics is another easy way. Traveling or psychedelics. Psychedelics can make you disassociate from what all these automatic responses make you question it. Like the first time I did mushrooms, I still remember I looked at the light switch and I'm like, I don't know for certain if I push this light switch that the light's actually going to turn on. Like my brain had to make this association again. And that's just one crazy example, but that was with everything. And so then that just really blew my mind open. And maybe I did it at the right time. Maybe I should have done it when I was a lot younger, but maybe that was the right time. But yeah, psychedelics with intent to really like use them to question everything about your reality would be the other way. So because you asked, how do you like first steps to get out of the matrix? So radical responsibility and the mindfulness and realizing what associations are being made, subconscious versus conscious thinking, and tools to do that would be travel and psychedelics.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would also add to the fact that, just being open to new people, new experiences, and curious
Mm.
to want to know what else is out there. If you're trying to become more, achieve more, create more, live a fuller life, I think that, we have to let go of how we feel set in our ways and just become more curious about different ways of living, being, you know?
Yeah, the brain always wants to, this is normal, it's a survival thing. The brain always wants to look at something and say good or bad, and label it. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, like you said, to be open-minded and receive the information and understand someone's perspective without like labeling everything as good or bad. But it's easier said than done. The brain will always try to default back to that. And it's something very hard to teach because the mainstream media and the matrix wants people to label everything like this because then they can very easily control people based on emotion.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I think you're right. Like we're always trying to close the loop. We're trying to see something, make sense of it from our perspective, our life, from our worldview. But if we can try to keep that openness and curiosity and just keep that open loop to just take in whatever it is that we need to take in so that we can really, instead of react, analyze the information and respond accordingly. And sometimes we don't give ourselves the opportunity to be more open to different people, perspectives, opinions, beliefs, right? Like sometimes we just want that confirmation that, our beliefs are the right beliefs, and we'll look to everything to reconfirm that that's the right belief. But the more we can stay open and curious, the more we can evolve, right? Can evolve as people, and really gravitate towards what's really true for us, right? Because sometimes we're robbed that opportunity to create our own belief system, to create our own perfect lives, because we're sort of following the blueprint of society, of parents, or just people putting things upon us that we didn't necessarily choose, but we think we did, although we haven't. So yeah, I love that. I love that. So Tony, for people who want to follow your work, where can they go for more information and get more information on your protocol and what it is that you do and stay up to date with what's happening with you?
Yeah, a good landing page would be tonyhuge.is. So not tonyhuge.com, tonyhuge.is, because that would have like coaching things and different links to my different media and some articles and contact. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tony, for being here today and sharing your incredible journey with us. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and I hope to stay connected with you.
All right. Thank you, Mary.
Take care.